Hello and welcome back everyone. Today we're here with the 6th installment in our recreating the top voted battle map series, and I would like to approach the video for today a little differently than I do usually. What we're gonna do today is, like I mentioned in the last video, we're going to beautify the curbs and make sure that the hallways start to look interesting, have a lot of things going on there, and feel really like a proper grimy sewer system. And in order to do that, we're going to add in a lot of different objects and use patterns and shadows in order to create that atmosphere that we're looking for. And in the previous video, I did this on the fly. I was trying to figure everything out, and with the water sections, that was actually quite hard. So this time I've changed it up a little bit and I've done a section beforehand, which we'll dive into in just a sec. I'll show you guys how I created that. And after that, we're going to recreate the same effect on a different area that I haven't touched yet. And then afterwards, we're going to fast forward and do a wrap up of the entire thing. Now, I've created a screenshot of a separate part of the sewer system. I actually came up with this idea when I already had finished up one section of the map. So this won't be the same section as the one that you're going to see next, but it looks quite similar. So this is the current situation. Well, you've seen it in the previous videos. There's not that much to it, but it starts to look like something. And the result I want to go for is this. And as you can see, I already moved away some of the lighting. We're going to have to think about how we're going to address the lighting, because we don't want everything to be pitch black. So it will probably be kind of well lit. I know it's not how it's supposed to be, but we do want people to be able to see the dungeon and see the sewers instead of just looking at the pitch black. However, we're also creating a version without the lights so that people can use it easily in virtual tabletop systems. So I will zoom in a little bit. We've already applied a lot of objects. We've added different tiles in here. We've added shadow patterns in order to darken our bricks. And I actually went out of the way to add a few more things to this area after I made the screenshot. So I'll show you in just a second in Dungeondraft. So we'll compare the two and what they look like. The left hand side is the current state of the map, and the right hand side you have well, practically a finished area already. And this is really the field I want to go for. We have some moss growing everywhere. It looks like it's kind of battered, and well, it contains basically everything you'd expect of a sewer system. So let's move over to Dungeondraft so we can see what this area consists of. We'll dive in a bit more into detail. Alright, and here we are. So let's zoom in a bit further, and as you can see, I also used shadow patterns to darken out some of the bricks in the wall to just create some more variety there as well. And I also made them a bit browner using some patterns as well, so that it blends in more with the environment. And as you can see right here, these curbs and the stones blend in much better now than they used to. Because there was quite a harsh difference, especially if you have the light on top of it. But if we go back up here, you see it blends quite smoothly. It's not perfect, but that's just the limitation of Dungeondraft for now. So what I did, I'll just go ahead and dissect the area a little bit, because there is a lot going on here. We have pebble patterns that we used to create an overlay. We have already added some grime assets, the blood that I often use for this. I'll zoom in a bit further. Works really well for that in order to create some algae, but also some just general muddy spots or grime. We have the tiles itself, of course, but here you can actually see kind of nicely what's underneath. We have these patterns that create the plants in between. We have these shadow patterns that will create a bit of an offset between the tiles. There we have one of the brown spots that we used. And I'm going to go ahead and try and catch some of the patterns that I placed over the curbs, but it's quite difficult right now. Well, but you can get an idea. Here you can see that there are just different layers on top of here to make them darker or a bit browner. Here we have a grime overlay, which might be hard to see it's quite subtle, but if we zoom in a bit further, you might be able to distinguish it as some kind of lined pattern on there. I actually think it's supposed to be skin or blood. However, you can repurpose it for practically anything. So that's what we did. I'll reset this all for a moment. All right, there we go. And we added in some objects as well, some stones to overlap on top of the curb so that we kind of create the idea of that this all belongs together. We do the same thing with the moss right here. I actually made the moss a tad translucent so that you can see through it a little bit. It's on 184 alpha value. It helps just to blend in with the colors around it. We've added some broken glass, some rubble with the newspaper here as well, and that's basically it. Now, to give you an idea what kind of patterns I used, let's go on to the pattern tool. And if we scroll down somewhat, we have these mossy overlays right here. I'll place it on a blank area like so. That creates these kind of plans everywhere. We used this specific one, this is the square tiles height map that you can place on top. It's actually a very easy tool to already create that height difference from each tile, especially in a sewer system, and chances that all the tiles are even is basically non-existent. I considered adding some grime in here as well, but I don't know, it doesn't quite hit the mark for me. I tried to recolor it to something different, but it didn't really work for me. When I went all the way down, we have these other assets, which are the shadow patterns. And those are the ones that I mentioned before, because you can use these quite handily in order to cover specific tiles. So if you want to create an idea of depth or just a discoloration of a specific tile, you can add in these patterns to make them darker, brighter, or whatever. And if we do it like this, we'll just take a few. So we have these 6 tiles right here, and we go back up right there, and we grab the square tiles height map overlay, and you place those on top on those 6 tiles. It blends in actually quite nicely, especially from a distance. You don't really see the lines, and this is something I definitely recommend using. It makes your life so much easier, especially if you use it alongside the square grout, which is the plants. You can cover like giant sections of the map really easily. I'm stubborn. I do it piece by piece, make them small and kind of custom. I add in objects here and there as well, but you don't have to. You could get away with just placing down these patterns in specific areas of the map. It is recommended though to not have it stick to the specific tiles. So you want to have snap to grid turned off. And that's because, as you can see, if we snap the grid and we place it on top of here, the plants cut out halfway through, and that looks, well, bad. So what you can do is you can just turn off snap to grid, and you want to include a bit of area, a bit of stone above and below the lines, so that you have a bit of leeway. And you see there's actually a break in the plants in the pattern itself. However, here on top, it cuts off quite sharp, but that's something that you can blend in using some either some grime or some different plant that you can paste on top of there, like a specific object for moss potentially. And if you want to make it blend in more, because this is quite harsh by itself, I mean it's quite brightly colored, you can tone it down by turning down the alpha value somewhat and playing around with the color. So right now this is somewhat brownish yellow, but if we want to make it more brown, closer to brown than to green, and we want it to blend in some more, we'll place the alpha value on 150 for now, and we'll do it again. And right there, this already blends in significantly better with the environment than the rest does. So that's how you can go about creating a very detailed and interesting pattern, because otherwise, like, just plain hallways will be kind of boring, and this creates some kind of atmosphere for the whole map without you spending too much time on it. So with that finished, I think it's a good idea if I just implement all the things I just mentioned, and we're going to I think we're going to do it on the side area over here. Let's see if there's maybe more appealing section. Oh, we can recreate the same thing but above here. I think that would work. Yeah. So we're going to recreate what we did on the left. And we're going to do it on this side. And I'll just walk you through the process one step at a time. If you have any questions with regards to anything I do, feel free to shoot them in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as possible. And let's just go from here. The first thing that we want to place on top of these tiles are the broken tiles, because on top of the broken tiles, we want all those shadow effects to help them blend in with the environment. And if we are placing down the broken tiles at the end, you're going to have to reorder everything with the layers, and that's going to be quite a mess. I actually had to do it on the left side, and yeah, it was tedious, but we managed. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and search for the tile set that we used. There we are. And we're just going to take the square shape. We're going to zoom in some more just to verify that this is actually on layer 2. Yeah. And we're placing this on layer 2 as well. And with patterns, the newest layer always goes on top. So we're going to turn snap to grid on, and we're going to break a few of these tiles over here. And I just do it left and right, here and there. I try to not fall into a specific pattern. It's quite hard not to repeat the same style here and there. I don't know why. It's just your brain trying to mess with you, I think. And we're just going to break a few of these tiles here. And I already noticed that a few places we're going to have to readjust the pathway of the curb. That's not a problem. And let's see, are we already content with this? I think we're going to need one more stone over there. And we'll take this area all the way down here. All right. Now we're going to readjust the layers of the pathway that we have here. Place that on there too. Make sure that that blends in. Yeah, marvelous. And now the next thing that I want to do is the coloration of the tiles and the height map. So back to the parent shape tool. And we want to use the height map just on the entire thing. I did it on the left hand side as well, and it just looks better to have it applied everywhere. So there we go. That's an easy fix. And now we're going to take a shadow pattern, and I'm going to switch between the 25% shadow 25 and the shadow 50 to create a variety of color. Let's see, we'll start with 25, and we're just going to lower a few of these bricks. Then we'll take the 50% and we'll make some of them even darker. We want to do that specifically with maybe some of the broken tiles. Don't want to be too dark though, so it works better on the somewhat lighter ones than on the very dark tiles, because they do have a difference in color now. So we have to make sure that we pick the right ones. There we go. I think that looks lovely. And in order to help blend the curbs in some more with the rest of the map, we're going to turn off snap the grid. We're going to place this on layer 3. And we're going to just overlay that on top of the curb here. Scroll down, make sure it aligns with the black line to the right. And there we go. That's already a significant improvement, as you can see. I will do the same thing on the other side. Make sure it aligns properly with the tiles, because otherwise you will see a line. And take it all the way up there and drop. And that's actually quite good already. Additionally, because now we have the shadow patterns equipped, I'm going to darken out some of the tiles of the wall. We'll place it on layer 700 above the wall. And I will just zoom in a bit because the black line is quite small. And I did notice that these really dark tiles work better if you have a somewhat darkened out stone next to it. So if you have a brick where you use the shadow 50, it helps to have a shadow 25 right next to it. I'm not sure why that is, but it's visually a bit more appealing, you could say. It blends well together. So we'll just double the 25 over this one. There we go. And that way you also have the same effect. And we can do it with the slightly bent one over here as well, but we just edit the points. We'll grab the corner and we'll drag it down. Make sure it's included. And I see that I haven't done much on the left hand side here, so we'll with that out of the way, we can go back to layer 3 and we're going to do the same thing with the curbs that we have here. So we'll just darken out a few of the tiles real fast. And there we are. I think this already looks much better. So with that out of the way, we're going to blend it all together somewhat with a brown overlay, something brownish. And I actually notice right now that I used the skin. I actually have no clue how this is skin, but sure. And I'm going to make this like very translucent, so the alpha value will be really low. I'll have to check it out, but that's maybe a bit too much. It should be really down there somewhere. I think this works. And right now we want it to be kind of brownish, quite dark as well. And the difference is really subtle, but it does do more than you think. We're going to add that to the entire row of tiles. We're going to add it on top of the walls as well, and we want to place that on layer 300 so that we can include the curbs. So right there, and that'll again help to blend everything in together. And now we're going to do the same thing with the walls on level 700, and we'll just smooch that right over there and on the other side. Awesome. And I'm going to give this the same lighting that I did on the other side as well. So we'll remove the ones that we have here in relatively close proximity. This is for the bridge, so that's something different. Shouldn't remove that. It gets really laggy right now. We'll just copy and paste that here. We'll place one just outside of view, one in the middle, and one bit further down here. And that will be our light source for now. I think that's also what I want to go for, to create some kind of ominous glow coming from nowhere kind of lighting, because it doesn't really make sense to me to fill the entire area with lanterns. But very curious to hear what you think of it. Now the next thing that we want to add is some of the grout that we've added in this side. And now when we add some of the grout, we want to try and go grab the same color values that we did right here. And now we're going to switch to the pattern, and now we have it here. And these kind of things make your life so much easier. So please don't forget to use that, because I forget it all the time. And there's nothing more annoying than looking at your map when it's finished and realizing that there's a color difference between several areas of the map, because then you have to go in and fix it, and that's also quite a tedious job. So we're just going to add a few spots here and there. It doesn't have to be everywhere. And I tried to find the nice break lines that work quite well already by itself. And we're going to add in some of this in the area here as well, on the edge of the curb, between the curb and the tiles. But we'll do that with objects and not with the pattern. And now next up is the pebble layer. And now I think of it, it might have been wise to add in the pebbles a bit earlier, because right now they might be a bit brightly colored, but that's not a big issue actually, because we can fix this quite easily by applying some shadow pathways in the end. So let's see if we can find the pebbles. There are the pebbles. And we're just going to place them relatively randomly, and I do recommend for stony objects to or stony surfaces I should say, that you use overlay B, because overlay A for the pebbles is an effect that makes it look like it's covered in grass actually. There's one over here. You see these lines that blend them in with grass, but yeah, that's not going to work here. And we're just going to add a few pebbles here and there. And the great thing about this is that this is random, so we can just expand on these pebbles specifically by applying objects. But the objects themselves, they're quite cluttered with pebbles from time to time, so I prefer this to have it very sporadically spread around the map. Alright, and with these patterns out of the way, I believe that we are move on to objects actually, and start to clutter it all up in here and add in a few nice touches to this section of the tunnel. And when that's done, we can call this area finished, and I'll just proceed to do this to the entire dungeon and all the hallways. Now, I decided to do a few things off camera. I've already worked on some sections of the map. For example, over here, I already added in some broken glass, some grime, piece of wood, and already applied all the textures on here. And I decided to do it this way because I wanted to try and focus a bit more on the things that are very useful, not necessarily the time lapses, because I feel like they might not be as interesting to everybody to watch. So I mainly want to try and focus more on the actual doing and explaining all the theory, and then maybe do some more things in between videos. It's also because this map is actually quite big, and it just requires a lot of time to apply it to the entire dungeon, and sometimes it's nicer to do it out of camera. Now you might also notice a change in audio. That's because I am working with a new microphone. Might take a little bit of getting used to, making sure that everything works as intended. So I might apologize if there's a significant difference, but what we're going to have to make do for now. Okay, with that out of the way, let's add in some objects, shall we? The first thing that I would like to add is some kind of stones, pebbles, rubble, anything. So let's start with the rubble and see what we can have here. And I was thinking to add some kind of broken bricks, because I imagine that those are just falling out of the walls left and right. And we'll turn off the shadow here. And I just realized that we might need to add in a bit more shading along the walls, because on this side it looks better. It looks darker, but we'll do that at the end. So let's first add brick over here. I want to try and not keep to the lines of the tiles as much. Your intuition might do that for some reason, but life is chaotic, so we want to have it spread out everywhere and quite randomly. And we'll create this, we'll reduce it a bit in size to the size of a wall stone. So that kind of looks like maybe that has fallen out, or they're just laying there because they were intended for repairs at some point. I'm just going to add a bit more of these stones in here. I think that would look cool. And we have to make sure that it doesn't accidentally go underneath any of the shadow patterns that we've placed. And we'll make sure that this blends in later when we're done and we have all the objects in place. Then we'll add in some shadows and blend the whole thing together. I think I want to go for the pebbles. Oh, and some broken glass. We also want some broken glass in here. Do we have some green? Not necessarily. No, but this translucent glass will work. This is perfect. Place it on layer 2. Make sure that it blends in. Ta-da. Do the same thing over here. And then see what we have for rubble. Seems workable. Yeah, that looks cool. Add it in with the tiles that are already there. We'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, that's great. Now we have some bricks laying around. I also want some moss. And before we do that, I'm going to grab the moss from here and steal the color that I picked for that, because it's been quite a while since I worked on it last. So I don't know exactly. Go accept. And with that out of the way, we're going to place some moss here as well. And we want to add that underneath some stones. I'll zoom in for you guys so you can follow along a bit better. I'm just gonna strew it about randomly. Also in between these tiles to make sure that they start to blend together with the rest. I noticed a bit of a line in here because of, I think, some of the patterns that I've placed. And these objects are an ideal way to just hide that as well. Make it less noticeable at least. There's an object, so we'll just replace. We'll move it up a layer. And I also want some of the bigger patches that we may be able to use. This is awesome. You can also do it with these areas over here. These the broken tiles and the lines that those create, so that you have some moss growing specifically into the lines. And we're just going to blend it all together here. And then finally, we want some of the larger moss to just grow from the walls, and have this like tentacle-ish feel, like tentacles coming from the wall. It adds to the creepy. That works perfectly awesome. Okay, so we have some moss, and with the moss, there's already quite a few things to see around here. I'm curious to see that we did add a paper, but add something from a paper as well, just to get a different tone in color in here. We're going to need something that's properly grimy already, make it easier to blend in with the rest. So we can take something like this burnt paper, and we'll just, it's a bit of a bummer that you don't have any paper that's that you can change the alpha value of, because if you could do that, that's unfortunate, then you could create the impression that it's soaked, and that you can see like the tiles that are underneath them. Okay, so now we have the objects, and now actually the last thing that we want to do is the grime objects, the blood that we need, and then afterwards we'll add in some additional shading to the whole piece, and then we're finished. So I think that's just a few more minutes to go here. First of all, we'll go to blood. We'll search for the blood patches, and we'll turn down the alpha value significantly, turn it up in size, and this can be some kind of algae growing around. I think that if we put it on layer 200, that works in most cases already. Sometimes it's hard to see where it overlaps and what objects are higher. But it doesn't actually matter, because, and add in some more moss over here and see if we can make it smaller and maybe ramp up the alpha value a little bit. And we'll just blend in a few of the tiles that we have here. The tiles from the cubs there, I mean. And it's quite okay to be somewhat repetitive in where you place this, because they're kind of hard to distinguish from the floor. So you don't have to be as careful that the placement is perfectly correct or non-repetitive. And with this one out of the way, we're going to go closer to brown and do this part again. We have to make sure that we take with the newspaper this time. You already see that's actually just one blood smear on there, grime smear, and it's already not as bright as the rest, and it does hell of a good job in blending in an additional an object into the environment. You can add some of these stains in here as well, and maybe even make it very dark for one. Let's see if we can create some kind of coffee stain. Yeah. And then we turn back the alpha value, and oh, there we are. And then we're just going to finish this up. And now I want to place a few of them also on layer 700 on top of the walls, because that way we can create some effect on the walls as well. Don't have to do this a lot, but we'll just place it on a few of them, and it's details, but in the end it's going to help blend it together. Make sure that everything is set in the same tone, and this one is still good. We're also going to have to just tone it down with some shading. Alright, and now the objects are there. We'll take a shadow path. I'm gonna go for shadow path small, because we can customize that in any way that we want. And I'm first going to just line these objects, and it's okay if it goes underneath there. make sure that they cast a shadow on their surroundings. Shouldn't forget to place it on fade in, fade out. And we'll work from the bottom up here. And I will set it to layer 300. And we're going to blend it along the edges of the wall. This has to be 4 even to make sure it's on top of all the objects. And I want it to be quite a bit darker on the left hand side. And now this zone is a bit darker as well. Just placing 2 or 3 layers on top of that. Do it the same on this side. This already does a lot of magic for your map. And it keeps surprising me every single time how much of a difference this can make for you. And now I want to apply maybe some detailing. So we'll make it very small to 0.13. And then make sure that's still on layer 400, and I'll make it a bit darker. And just make sure that all the objects cast a shadow on one another. Do the same thing over here. That one looks a bit weird though, so let's change that. But we need something over here. And we'll do it on the back side here as well. That one was sufficient. And it's just toying around a little bit. Let's see how things progress. Still want to make the back side of that one darker. And what I always like to do is take the shadow path V25 small and just go over the edges of like a newspaper. I think we need to make that little bit bigger. That was the one I was looking for. And just go over the edges because it helps to blend it into the environment again, like I always preach. And if we zoom out a little bit, I still want to see, I think that we want just a bit more general shadow on the left hand side as well. So we'll just grab a shadow path medium 25 and we'll just create some additional shading and pull that all the way down, and do the same thing on this side. There we are. Okay, and now I think I can call this area finished, and that's another piece of the dungeon done. I think that right now we still need to do quite a lot. I am working through the map with one pattern at a time. So we already applied the broken tiles, and we also have the offset and a pattern on top of the curbs to blend them in with the tiles a bit better. And I'm just going to work through the sections and fill it up. Potentially when we pick up the next section, which after this is either going to be one of the rooms indoors already, or it's going to be this area over here where we want to create something fun to look at. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with it. That the entire map is not finished yet, but I just want to keep the videos going, make sure that you guys don't have to wait too long for a new video, and that we just proceed with the map as it stands at that moment. That way I don't have to pressure myself in finishing specific tasks up. However, I'll be sure to give you guys an update every time that we post a new video. So I would like to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please hit the like, favorite and subscribe button. It really helps to get my video out there. Also commenting and anything that you can and want to do. Everything helps. The algorithm really likes it when people react to your videos, so please feel free to do so. If you guys want to support the channel, I have a Patreon page where I have some battle maps as well as some tokens available for my Patreons as a small reward. I'm still considering to add other things, but I'm not entirely sure how that's going to look like just yet, but I'll link to it in the description of this video. Now, again, I would like to thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.